This video is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the best online retailer for Magic the Gathering singles and sealed product. And GatheringMagic.com, the #1 source for Magic the Gathering news and content.
Hi, I'm Ethan Fleischer, lead designer of Commander 2014 edition. This is my Grimgrin Corpseborn deck. Alright, let's do it. Grimgrin Corpseborn, of course, is a powerful zombie warrior that led shambling hordes of zombies on the plain of Innistrad. So he has a significant drawback. He enters the battlefield tapped, and he doesn't untap normally. But you can sacrifice a creature at any time for no mana to untap him and put a +1/+1 counter on him. And then whenever he attacks, you can destroy target creature an opponent the defending player controls and put another +1/+1 counter on Grimgrin. So Grimgrin is quickly going to get very large and destroy a lot of creatures if your opponents don't interfere. So you have some cards that sort of combo specifically with Grimgrin. Arena of the Ancients is one of them. The theory here is that if my commander can't untap normally, then nobody's commander gets to untap normally. So it's pretty mean. Gravecrawler is another famous combo card with Grimgrin. Because Grimgrin is a zombie, as long as he's on the battlefield, you can play Gravecrawler from your graveyard. And so you can sacrifice the Gravecrawler, cast it again, sacrifice it, cast it again. Grimgrin can get very big very quickly with Gravecrawler around. Minamo, School at Water's Edge. If you need to untap Grimgrin and you don't feel like sacrificing anything, Minamo can come in handy because it can untap any legendary permanent. Rogue's Passage. Grimgrin can get very large, and so killing people with commander damage is a very realistic proposition with him. So Rogue's Passage comes in handy if you need him to have a chance to get stuck in. So one of the big themes of my deck is graveyard recursion. Zombies don't stay dead, they just keep shambling on and on and on, and they're just unstoppable. Ashen Ghoul is maybe not the most powerful commander card, but it's an old classic in sort of that trope of zombies that keep coming back. Balthor the Defiled is very powerful. He can bring a whole lot of your zombies back all at once. So watch out for him. And of course he's a zombie also. Cruel Revival is a little bit of spot removal that also incidentally brings one of your zombies back from the graveyard. Gravedigger is a zombie that can bring something back from the graveyard. Havengul Lich allows you to cast cards from anyone's graveyard. Living Death, of course, a very famous card. Destroys all the creatures that are in play right now and brings back everything that's in the graveyard. Lord of the Undead lets you bring your zombies back from the graveyard. Necromantic Selection destroys everything and then brings one of them back from the graveyard and turns it into a zombie. Phyrexian Delver allows you to reanimate, and it's attached to a zombie body, so value. Rise from the Grave brings something back from any graveyard as a zombie. Sword of Light and Shadow, in addition to granting the equipped creature +2/+2 protection from white and from black, if you can hit an opponent with it, you gain 3 life, and you can bring one of your creatures back from the graveyard to your hand. Vengeful Pharaoh, if you're attacked while he's in the graveyard, he will go back onto the top of your library and destroy one of the attacking creatures. Alright, so another theme here is just giant hordes of zombies. So Army of the Damned, of course, can make 26 zombies over time. Curse of Shallow Graves can sort of take some of the heat off you by encouraging people to attack one of your opponents. And lots of people are going to get zombies, but let me tell you, my deck can make better use of zombie tokens than most decks. Empty the Pits, of course, makes tons of zombies and can be quite inexpensive if it's in the late game. Endless Ranks of the Dead. You're going to get zombies over time with this one. Alright, so Ghoulcaller Gisa. She was one of the creators of Grimgrin in the storyline, and she's also good at sacrificing creatures, and you can get quite a lot of zombies when you do that. Grave Titan, of course, a classic. Get zombies when he enters the battlefield, get zombies when he attacks. Liliana's Reaver. This is a nice efficient creature. It's got death touch, so it's a good rattlesnake. And if you want to attack, you can disrupt someone's hand and get some zombies incidentally. It adds up. Overseer of the Damned. It's a little on the expensive side, but is flying, which is very good for this deck. There are not very many flying creatures that fit into the theme of this deck. So it's good to have some flying defense, and it's good to be able to have some spot destruction. And then things die a lot in Commander, and whenever one of these things dies, you're going to get a zombie, and that is pretty good. Stitcher Geralf, of course, is the other creator of Grimgrin. He teamed up with his sister, Gisa. This one, he makes large zombies, and he sort of incidentally mills everyone, which gives you more targets for your reanimation spells. Syphon Flesh keeps the board under control a little bit, and incidentally gives you zombies. Call of the Grave is pretty brutal. Yeah, people are just going to be sacrificing creatures left and right, but of course because you have zombies on the board at all times, this Call of the Grave is not likely to go away anytime soon. Cemetery Reaper buffs all of your zombies and can make more zombies. And we have several other zombie lords here, or cards that help your zombies. So Death Baron makes them bigger and gives them death touch. Diregraf Captain makes them bigger, and when they die, your opponent loses a life. Graveborn Muse draws cards equal to the number of zombies you control. Rooftop Storm, of course, very powerful. Makes all of your zombie cards cost 0 mana, which is very powerful with Gravecrawler and Grimgrin. You know, if Gravecrawler costs 0, you can just cast as many times as you want. Grimgrin can become arbitrarily large. Undead Alchemist. This is an interesting card. It makes it so that your zombies mill your opponents, but whenever they mill a creature, you get another zombie, so it tends to snowball very quickly, and you can end up with a tremendous army of zombies and clean all of the creatures out of your opponent's decks. It's not always going to be the best play, but sometimes it can be very powerful, and it's almost always amusing at the very least. Undead Warchiefs make your zombies quite powerful. Zombie Apocalypse destroys all humans, but more importantly, brings all the zombie cards from my graveyard to the battlefield. So, gets them all back. Zombie Master, the classic zombie lord, allows them to regenerate and gives them Swamp Walk. Maybe not the most powerful, but how could I run a zombie tribal deck without Zombie Master? Let's get real. It's the OG. So there's a lot of zombies in here that don't specifically fit into the theme, but are just useful to have around and happen to be zombies. So they're good. They're boosted by the things that care about zombies, but they have various functions. So Agent of Erebos is one of them. If your opponent is also playing a graveyard-based deck, sometimes you need to keep them under control. Agent of Erebos lets you exile all of their cards from their graveyard, and can do it more than once. There are several other enchantments in this deck, so it can happen several times if you need it to. Fleshbag Marauder, of course, is makes each player sacrifice a creature. You can bring this guy back several times with your various recursion methods, and it can be quite a good way of exerting board control. Geralf's Mindcrusher incidentally mills everyone a little bit, and or mills someone a little bit, and he has Undying, so if there's a board sweeper, he'll come back even bigger and mill someone again. Grave Betrayal. We can kill a lot of creatures with Grimgrin, and putting it back on your side as a zombie, what could be better? Grey Merchant of Asphodel. You gotta gain life in Commander sometimes, there's a lot of ways to die, and running out of life is the biggest one. So Gary can gain a lot of life, because there are a lot of black mana symbols on these cards. Helldozer. It's one of the few zombie-themed land destruction spells, so in he goes. You can take care of Maze of Ith, or Volrath's Stronghold, or whatever your opponent has that's causing you trouble. Jhessian Zombies, it has island cycling and swamp cycling, which is mostly what it's going to be used for. You're going to get into your graveyard to go get a land early in the game, and then maybe reanimate it later on. Korlash, Heir to Blackblade. This guy gets very huge. There are a lot of swamps in this deck, and so he gets really big and he regenerates. And he looks cool. What could be better? Lim-Dul the Necromancer. This guy costs a ton of mana, but you are going to be killing your opponent's creatures, and bringing them back as zombies it's a good thing to do. And of course he can regenerate zombies too. Mikaeus the Unhallowed. This guy's just nuts. Like, your creatures are almost impossible to kill permanently once he gets out. Pontiff of Blight. Again, here's another way to gain a whole lot of life and do damage to people who have lots of blockers or whatever. Just extort them. You're going to have a lot of creatures, you're going to have a lot of zombie tokens, and giving them all extort is very powerful. Raving Dead. I haven't had too much of a chance to try out this card in this deck, but it's a zombie, it's wacky, does something crazy, could be interesting. Skin Render, a little light spot removal on an efficient body. You can kill smaller creatures pretty easily. I'm never really unhappy to see Skin Render, so he's been in here a long time and he pulls his weight. Blight of Precinct 6, that was one of the earliest cards that I designed for Magic R&D, and works really well in multiplayer, and it's only 2 mana, and this guy can just be enormous. Withered Wretch. This thing is really handy. 2 mana, and then you can just start exiling cards from graveyards, which a lot of your opponents are going to have cards that you really don't want them to have in their graveyard, so keep them under control with Withered Wretch. Alright, so we have a bunch of sort of utility spells here that are just generally useful, not particularly thematic, but Damnation, destroy all creatures, they can't be regenerated. Forbidden Alchemy, this is pretty useful. You know, you can draw the cards you need, you can put other cards in your graveyard, it has flashback, so if you mill it, you can use it later, or just use it twice. Gate to Phyrexia is one of the most powerful artifact destruction spells in the game. It's also one of the very few black artifact destruction spells. It works really well with the sacrifice theme. Grave Pact again plays into the sacrifice theme. Every time you sacrifice a creature, all of your opponents are going to have to sacrifice a creature. It's going to be really hard for them to keep anything on the board with Grimgrin and zombie tokens and Grave Pact and all that. Lightning Greaves, keep Grimgrin safe and give him haste. Get in there quickly. Maze of Ith, if your opponent has a big creature that you don't want to be attacked by, Maze of Ith will keep it at bay. Nevinyrral's Disc. If you're playing a blue-black deck, you have to have Nevinyrral's Disc, I would say, to deal with opposing artifacts and enchantments. Very powerful. Swiftfoot Boots, very similar to Lightning Greaves. Unstable Obelisk is sort of a miniature Nevinyrral's Disc that you can tap for mana early on in the game. Darksteel Ingot, nice indestructible mana rock. Dimir Signet, another mana rock. And of course Sol Ring, the ultimate mana rock. So we have a few utility lands in here. Bojuka Bog. Again, if your opponent has a graveyard-based deck, Bojuka Bog is going to come in handy. Cabal Coffers can tap for very large amounts of mana. There are a lot of swamps in the deck, as I mentioned earlier, so Cabal Coffers is super handy. Cavern of Souls, it's a tribal deck, so just set it for zombies and your cards can't be countered. Command Tower, of course, pretty much mandatory in all decks with more than one color. We have some dual lands, Dimir Aqueduct, Drowned Catacomb, Polluted Delta, Temple of Deceit. Alright, Temple of the False God can tap for 2 mana. It's useful. Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. So this turns all lands into swamps, which is useful on a lot of axes. Works very well with Cabal Coffers and Korlash, Heir to Blackblade, by making all of your lands swamps. And then it also is useful because some of your, there's Zombie Master and such, which gives your zombies Swamp Walk. So having your opponents have swamps can be pretty useful there too. Watery Grave, another dual land. And then we get to the basic lands. So these are just various foil lands that I picked up, most of them since I started working at Wizards. We crack a lot of booster packs there, as I'm sure you can imagine. So yeah, one of the things you'll notice that the deck is missing is tutors. There's a couple of land tutors, but there's nothing in the way of demonic tutor or things like that. I don't really like playing with tutors in Commander too much. They make each game play out too similarly. I like to have each game be very different from each other. It's more fun that way for me. But of course, to each his own. And you can see I'm just going through all the different swamps here. So yeah, that's my Grimgrin deck. It's a shambling horde led by a gigantic, monstrous zombie. And it never quits. It just keeps going. People think they've got me. They think, oh, he's all out of cards and he's all out of creatures. He has no hope left. And then all my zombies come back and teach them a lesson. Thanks for watching CMDR Decks. Please subscribe and favorite.